Shalom. I would like to give all reverence, due benevolence, worship, honor, praise, and glory unto the Most High God, whose name is Yahweh, and his only begotten Son, whose name is Yahushai. This is an exhortation to you Israelites, speaking to those of you whose fathers consider themselves to be Black, Hispanic, or Native American, that you are the true people of the Holy Bible. You are the true children of Israel. And once you understand your heritage, it is your responsibility to return unto the Father and his only begotten Son. And we do so by keeping their commandments and building our faith. It is a daily process. It is something that takes time. We wax and increase in the Spirit and hopefully reach a level where we are acceptable before the eyes of the Lord. I put up exhortations on this platform in hopes of edifying you brothers and sisters who may be new to this walk, who may have never heard about the Bible, which is probably a rarity. But if you're one of those people who may have never heard about the Bible, may have never heard about our people who are in a depressed and oppressed state, both depressed and oppressed state, that we actually have the utmost worth with the God of this world, and we're not just part of the dregs of society. I put up exhortations in hopes of simplifying the commandments that we are supposed to keep, as well as exhorting you on the ways of wisdom, how to conduct yourselves in interpersonal relationships in your day-to-day lives, as well as the proof of our true identity according to the scriptures. Because as you may know, there are people who are in the Holy Land right now in Jerusalem, in the country that is known as Israel, whose current borders are not even what the land was actually promised to our forefather Abraham, who are pretending to be you. They're claiming to be the Jews and the Israelites, and that's just very far from the case. While our people are scattered abroad throughout all four corners of the earth, we know that by and large, our people are the Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and we're also found in many other large concentrations, such as the west coast of Africa, Brazil, for example, parts of Western Europe like France and Great Britain, where we have a large concentration of our people over there, but we're also in all countries. The point is, it takes a combination of all these things in order to become a perfect man or woman. That doesn't mean that we'll never go off, we'll never sin, we'll never be subject to error. But what that means is when you're perfect, you understand when it is that you're going wrong, and you correct yourself accordingly. You fast, you pray, you beseech the Lord to increase you, and you see progress over time. So this exhortation is going to be on the commandments, and it's one that may be a bit uncomfortable, but it may also be one that you have either found yourself on the side of at one point, or maybe recurring for you. So this is the book of Exodus, chapter 20 and verse number 14. It says, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." So this is a very important commandment that Israel is required to keep, because we're not supposed to sleep. And let me be specific with this, because in modern days, you may say, okay, well, adultery is when you sleep with someone else who's married. According to the scriptures, men can have multiple wives. So if you're a man, you can have as many wives as you can take care of. You must be able to fulfill the duty of marriage in order to increase in the amount of wives that you have. If you don't or are not able to fulfill the duty of marriage, which is having sex with your wives, making sure that they're not deprived of sex, also making sure that they have food in their stomach, clothes on their back, and a roof over their head. It's just like if you were to have like a family, you need to make sure that everyone in your family is taken care of. So the same thing with your wives. You can't have 2-3 wives, and then let's say you have 3 wives, 2 of them you don't sleep with ever, and you just like treat them as bottom of the barrel, and then one you love with all your heart. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 21 and verse number 10, it says, if he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish. And if he do not these three unto her, then shall she go out free without money. So that context is speaking about a female servant, but in general, verse 10 is the operative, where it tells us that if you have multiple wives, you have to do the duty of marriage. So that's just some context for the true definition of adultery. Seeing that men can have multiple wives, adultery, according to the scriptures, according to God, is when a man has sex with another man's wife on the man's side. Now, for women, it's when a married woman has sex with anybody who is not her husband. So there's distinction there because, again, since a man can have more than one wife, that means that, let's say, I'll just use two biblical figures, for example, in the case of Adam and Eve. Adam would have had liberty to go and get another wife in addition to Eve. So once he was unionized with Eve, once they came together, if he went and he had sex with another woman, that would not be considered adultery against Eve. However, if Eve slept with anybody that was not Adam, that would be considered adultery. And depending on the nature of who she slept with, that could also be incest, which is the same for the man in many cases, but that could be incest, that could be lesbianism, for example. Of course, a man could theoretically sleep with another man if he goes both ways, but that's the proper understanding within the normal conventions. A man sleeping with another man's wife, or a woman sleeping with anyone who's not her husband. And under the normal convention, sleeping with a married woman sleeping with another man. So we need to be very diligent and disciplined that we're not falling into these traps. Excuse me. Because as you may see, especially in modern social media culture, it's becoming more popular now than ever for people to air out their dirty laundry for the whole world to see. You have YouTube channels, Instagram pages where people go on the public sphere and openly talk about how they were sleeping with someone else, with their partner right under their nose, how they were married and then they would bring their parents into the bedroom, things like that. If you are married, you as a man have the liberty to go and deal with other women if you have the financial means, if you have the mental fortitude, because as we all know, marriage is a huge responsibility. But what you can't do is see your friend or someone who you don't know and go and have sex with their wife. Whether you're overt about it or not, it's equally as evil. But if you're overt with it, then things may not end well for you. Because there is the spirit of jealousy, which the scriptures tell us as well. And when a man has that spirit of jealousy on him, there are ways, according to the law, where it can be deduced if a woman actually stepped out on her man. So that can be found in the book of Deuteronomy. I believe it's around the 23rd chapter. But let me just double down on adultery in Deuteronomy and then get a couple more precepts for context before rounding out. So this is now the book of Deuteronomy chapter 5. This is a secondary account of the law that was given unto Moses and the Israelites during the time of the Exodus. Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 18. It says, "Neither shalt thou commit adultery." So again, adultery is a very serious sin that comes with very serious ramifications. Now, I want to get a couple examples of adultery in the scriptures to show how men fell victim to it and the repercussions that came with it. So one of the most infamous accounts of adultery was with King David. David slept with one of his soldiers' wives, and not only so, but he also had him set up to be killed so that it wouldn't be found out. So this is the book of 2 Samuel chapter 11, and I'll get verse number 2. It says, "And it came to pass in an evening tide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned unto her house." So just some context right there, those first 4 verses, it lets us know that Bathsheba was married unto Uriah, and David went in unto her after she was purified of her uncleanness. That's speaking about her flower. She was on her period, and she was purified of it. She went through the process, which it tells us in the book of Leviticus chapter 15, where she was set apart and then purified. But either way, that doesn't nullify the transgression of adultery, which transpired here. Reading on, it says, verse 5, "And the woman conceived and sent and told David and said, I am with child. And David sent to Joab, saying, Send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah was come unto him, David demanded of him how Joab did and how the people did and how the war prospered." So listen to this. David got Bathsheba pregnant. So he's got a hot mess on his hands. He committed adultery. He got another woman pregnant. Now his soldier who's fighting for him, risking his life, putting his life on the line for him and for the nation of Israel, he could now find out because, you can put 2 and 2 together. 9 months to be pregnant. Let's say he's on the battlefield. He can time when he last slept with her. And things get ugly from there. So jumping down, this is now. So David and Uriah communed with one another. There was a fellowship that went on, but let's just get to the point about David setting up Uriah to die. It says, now this is 2 Samuel chapter 11, picking up at verse 14. It says, "And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter saying, Set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die. And it came to pass when Joab observed the city, that he assigned Uriah unto a place where he knew that valiant men were. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also." So that was a deceitful work that David did, because he moved Uriah from where he would usually be positioned in the battle, because Uriah was actually a soldier of note, which we read about in the book of 1 Chronicles, I believe it is. Uriah was actually a valiant warrior, but he put him where a lot of valiant men were in opposition to them, so that, you just put 2 and 2 together. You have the strongest men flanking him on every side, increases the likelihood that he can't fend them all off at one time. So that's what transpired. And the Lord ultimately slew the child that was born of David and Bathsheba through adultery, that first child. So that's an example there. And then I want to get one more before closing out. This is the book of Genesis, because I did mention that adultery can also come with many other ramifications, one of which being incest. But this is not a direct account of incest. This is an account of, just to be specific, this is an account of of Jacob's son, Reuben, going in unto one of his father's Wait a minute, let me get that account specifically. This is the book of Genesis chapter 35 and verse number 22. It says, "And it came to pass when Israel dwelt in that land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. So Reuben went and slept with Israel's concubine. Now, men can have wives. They can also have concubines. A concubine is like a lesser wife. Concubines are typically of the heathen nations, because Israel is supposed to be a peculiar nation, holy unto the Lord. And so all of the nations, by way of the Lord's word, are beneath Israel, or of a lesser stature, lesser degree, lesser state of exaltation. Really, the heathen are accounted to the Lord as nothing and less than nothing in spittle. But that's just the way it is. While, of course, Israel is supposed to deal with the other nations accordingly if they are born within their gates, as well as if they see beautiful women after taking the spoils of war, then they're supposed to be dealt with accordingly, but that's just what it is. So Reuben went and slept with his father's concubine. So let's see what the ramifications were. This is Genesis chapter 49 and verse 3. This is prophecy of what would befall the tribe of Reuben in the latter days because of that transgression. It says, "Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, then defilest thou it. He went up to my couch." So the curse there was that Reuben and the tribe of Reuben would suffer instability. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel. So adultery is very serious. Now you say, all right, well, Reuben was the son of Jacob. How's that adultery? Because at the end of the day, Reuben slept with another man who was Jacob, slept with another man's wife. So that's what it is. Jacob was in a union with Bilhah. His son went and violated that union. So that is adultery. And just to round out, this is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 27 and verse number 20. It says, "Cursed be he that lieth with his father's wife, because he uncovereth his father's skirt, and all the people shall say, Amen." So we need to be very diligent that we're not doing this to other people. To round out, if you have friends, and let's say you're a fellow, let's say you're son of Jacob, and you have friends, and you see that one of your friends is married and his wife is bad and she may have wandering eyes for you, you have to be disciplined to remove yourself from that situation. If you don't feel comfortable telling your friend, which I would exhort, speaking as a man, that you tell your friend, even if it threatens their union, then you need to cut that friend off or remove yourself from that situation, or make sure that you never, ever interact with him when he's around his wife as well. As for you women, be disciplined. Make sure that you're not stepping out on your husband if you're married with anybody else, and make sure that you're exercising prudence. Read the word, pray, fast. It's a great way to tame that fleshly lust. We all have that urge for sex. But if you discipline yourself and make sure that you stay rooted in the words of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai, it will help you tremendously to fend off that adulterous spirit, because it is running rampant in the earth right now. It is one of the most rampant spirits in the earth right now. It's always been prevalent, but I mean, just go on your phone or just speak to people. Like, I've even spoken to people in the way in which they've talked about how they cheat. Like, boyfriend, girlfriend, that paradigm is messy. But how they talk about how they cheat, it's like there's just that spirit of evil that's in the air. And what that does is it sets a precedent, because when those people get married and they come together in those unions, then they're not going to be faithful according to the word. So be faithful according to the word. Understand your role. understand what is permissible and not by the Lord. And hearken unto the words of our Lord Yahushua Mashiach in the Gospels as well, where he tells us, if you look upon a maid who is married, you've committed adultery with her already in your mind. So that's not to say if you see a beautiful woman walking down the street that you can't, see what's going on over there, holla at her if you want to holla at her. I mean, how can you get a wife if you don't step up and speak to women? But if you see a man and a woman, don't try to lure that woman away from her man. That's evil. With that, I say Shalom, Israel. Shalom.